Welcome in, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to The Right Stuff, a Blood Bowl podcast brought to you by Empire Games, coming out of sometimes lovely, surprisingly cool Anderson, South Carolina. I am Yannie, here with Nathan, who is back from the north.
That's correct. If your only contact with me is through the podcast, you wouldn't know that I've been missing for the last week. However, I've returned. As mysteriously as I disappeared.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but being gone for a week means you don't have a game to recap.
Yeah, there's probably we could speculate that my game may not have happened even with me being here the whole time, but that's all right.
Yeah, deep dive on punctuality coming in a future episode, I'm sure. But yeah, we've got honestly not too many games to talk about. But some of the games that happened are going to be worthy of discussion.
Yeah, and I would say I didn't get to watch any games this time around since I was obviously out of town. But some of these games look like I wish I had watched them. So,
yeah, very excited to jump into it. But we got to start with some catch-up games. Surprise, surprise. Going all the way back to week 5, half a season ago, we had the Wretched Foulfangs and the Legion of Honor, Honesty, and Friendship. It was a 1-0 win for Joel. I didn't have a ton of notes on this game.
They both did some damage. You have the classic stat line of big guy casualty, big guy injury that happened in this game. That's one of those where you don't necessarily want your big guys tangoing, right? We've talked about it a lot on this, where obviously the troll is a pretty sturdy character, but in this instance, it looks like the Rat Ogre was able to casualty it. Now, we fast forward a little bit, we see that the Rat Ogre gets casualtied by a Black Orc, and that's the perilous nature of the Rat Ogre. It exists in this superpositional state of being able to kill anyone and be killed by anyone. So,
yeah, and it seems like if you're going to be in a matchup where you're going to have fairly even damage on both sides, it's probably going to favor the person who has a gutter runner versus a bunch of goblins and black orcs that are rather slow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and both teams can take similar star players, right? So you could end up in a situation where the star players are awash, and yeah, I think this matchup is almost always going to favor Underworld. Joel, this is Bryson's very first league. Joel has at least played Blood Bowl before, prior to this league. Black Orcs are not Lizardmen are a fairly forgiving team in that you've got speed 8 characters who are stunty, and so you can always put the ball in the end zone. The Black Orcs do not have that luxury. Goblins are a lot tougher to score with than skinks. There's a world of difference between 6 movement and 8, and even though both have 8 armor, I would hate to have to try to win a game with just goblins on the field. And in the case of the Black Orcs, they're going to be kind of tied up in the wrong place. Now, the funny thing is prior to the nerf, Black Orcs actually had a fairly favorable win rate versus this is on a tournament level. But we're talking tournament Blood Bowl, not players new to the league Blood Bowl, right? I would almost always side with the faster team.
Yeah. Well, we got a faster matchup here. So week 7 catch-up game was Swamp People and the Wretched Foulfangs, which was a draw, and it was pretty similar. First game, there was 3 casualties apiece. This one was 4 casualties on the Lizardman side to 3 casualties for Joel. So it seemed, again, fairly balanced game.
Yeah, and the Rat Ogre with claws obviously probably didn't work in both of those games. You feel really good about a big guy with claws when you keep playing against armor 10, provided, of course, that you can break the armor. But yeah, I think it's just hard to stop either of these teams from scoring for the other team, right?
Yeah.
one of them could score from just a few squares up the field, and the other one could score through how many ever tackle zones are in the way, as long as you got some re-rolls, right? I'm actually surprised the score was only 1-1. I'm willing to bet both people didn't want to throw the game away, so they may have started playing for a draw.
Right.
I'd have to go look at exactly how it all shook out, but yeah, and I saw a message about Sneaky Get where Joel apparently got to use full-powered Sneaky Get during the course of this game. But yeah, it does not work that way anymore. That's the one, like, card games will ban cards as opposed to errataing them, just because they don't want players to play cards and play them wrong. Yeah, and this feels kind of like a similar situation.
Yeah, take notes on that, Ravensburger.
Yeah,
R.I.P. Bucky.
You're reading the rule book, but that's not how the game functions anymore. So.
Yeah. So, week 8. So this is the first of my games. So you didn't get to play any games. I got 2 games worth.
Yeah.
That's stuff to talk about. So you get to hear me more this episode.
I could do sideline reporter stuff to you.
Yeah. So this was so I played against the Swamp People of Joe. That was a draw, and this one was like a not quite as bad of a dicing as my previous game. So this actually was the most recent game I played. Still doing the Blood Bowl Rashomon thing,
right?
But my dice were not overall cooperating with me, and I received the ball, and near the middle of the first half, I had a linewoman in scoring position with the ball and decided to take a block that I thought was going to be important. My thought process on this was basically it was turn 5 or 6, and my rolls were not cooperating. He was rolling fairly solid, knocking a bunch of people down. Dodge did not matter very much in this game for a lot of it when sources were throwing blocks.
The one time he threw a hit on my block dodge corn gore in the game I played against Skoda, he just powed it and KO'd it. Yeah, so I'm right there with you.
Yeah, so that was kind of my thought process on that was, so I was like, I don't want to give the ball over because I feel like if I score now, he's going to be able to have enough time to score. 3 turns to score is plenty of time. With Lizardman team, then I'm giving him line hits. If line hits go bad, then that's going to be worse for me. So I marked a bunch. There was a group of skinks that I was able to mark and get some players around and kind of screen off the ball carrier. And then I moved my blitzer up so I could throw 2 dice with a Jaguar. And the Jaguar immediately double skulls. I don't have any rerolls because I had to try to burn rerolls to survive up to this point in the game. So the Jaguar falls over. The Saurus then casualties the blitzer and gives it a movement down. Luckily, it was the one that had a movement up, so it's just neutral. I'm okay paying $20,000 extra for a Piranha because I think they're pretty good value as it sits. So
yeah, they are kind of I think they cost $90. Yeah, they're slightly underpriced for $90 in my opinion.
Yeah, so I was fine with that. But then he makes a total of I think 7 or 8 dodges with those skinks to get out and get 2 dice and knock the ball carrier over. So going to the half scoreless, and I'm kicking to him, he scores, and I'm able to right at the end kind of salvage a score, but it was pretty bad dice. My thrower casualtied herself on a dodge that failed and is missing the next game.
Oof.
But my thought process is I think regardless of the first half, I think it would have been a draw. The main difference would have been 1-1 or 2-2. I think we both would have been able to equalize on each other given the time we had left. So 1-1, I'm okay with that. Nobody died. And losing a stat, I'm okay with. And
I had a strength down on a Bloodseeker with block, right? You're just that's glue territory where you just turn the guy into push him into the wood chipper. Whereas somebody who already has 2 skills and gets one of their stat ups that isn't strength or agility negated.
Mm-hmm.
It stings, but it's not the end of the world.
Yep.
You're not back at square one.
Exactly. Yeah. Other week 8 game to catch up on is the Soul Peak Dooms and the Escape and Play Skitter Stars. It seemed like Coop was doing a bunch of damage in this game, but regen was coming in, except for one noticeable time.
Yeah, I was going to say this was a 17 foul game between the two players, which is probably upper echelon of games that don't have the Black Gobbo in it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of fouls for both teams. Yeah,
it's more than one foul per like turn ish, like over the course of a game. So
right.
A lot of times I feel like one team will be doing majority of the fouling, and then
both teams were fouling quite a bit in this one.
Yeah.
It looked like.
Yeah, good affair for that. But yeah, a Mummy did get a strength down.
Yeah,
which is one of the worst case scenarios I think you could possibly have for a Mummy.
Strength down is, I mean, agility is whatever. Armor is not great, but it's still there. You still have regen. Passing, I don't even think you can get because it's got a passing nil.
Mm-hmm.
Movement. I mean, honestly, I guess we get to get a full we get to peer inside Jack's mind and what is worth firing and what is worth keeping on your mummies with stat downs, because both of them now have a stat down.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you get a strength up on that other mummy, it'll basically be a tree, right? Kind of. Without timber. But yeah. So that's our catch-up games. Not a lot. We're still working through it. So it's slowly getting better.
Yeah.
And we might have developments for the next episode about a new way that people are going to be catching up.
We will be instituting a plan.
Yeah. Week 9 games. So the first one we got up was one we were talking about the most. Just Those Who Wander and Renegades of Funk. And we'll put a big recap in the Discord about this one. So we'll go ahead and read that now. So we can just, blatantly steal people's content for us.
That's the way content creation works.
It's true. So I scored my turn 8, but logged as a casualty accidentally. Sean's turn 8, Rat Ogre casualties. His turn 9, he casualties 3 players on the line of scrimmage. I managed to slip through and score with some lucky dodges and 1 die blitzes. Guard blocker dodges twice for an easy 2 die on my ball carrier with the elf. The ogre manages to knock me down with a 2 go for it blitz. I move a blocker to cancel assist to open a blitz on the elf, down it, and dodge onto the ball to scoop it up and run further up the field. Sean's last turn, the ogre fails to knock the ball loose after proing another bonehead. In parentheses, pro was very valuable for everyone other than the troll who rolled 1 into 1 several times. He then sets players around to force bad dodges or a 1 die blitz out, plus a dodge after I cancel an assist by dodging my 2 heads Beastman. I 1 die blitz to Skaven, roll a push to clear him, and then 3+ dodge to score. So, looking at this game, like following this roleplay, I thought that
I didn't think Will had a team left.
Yeah. I was very shocked to go back in and see at the end. It's like, oh, Will won this game.
Yeah.
I thought a draw was like best case scenario.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Sean's team's just deadly. You just can't let your opponent get that many mighty blow hits on you. Like, right. It's just, it adds up, and Pro's insane on them, because you're more likely to get to use the mighty blow when you're hitting people. Even if you are passing your rolls, if you're not knocking people down, then you're not getting to use your skills, right? So Pro gets you an extra roll, right? Like Pro is an extra 66% of a block die when you throw a hit. I mean, it's deadly on them. The team adds up pretty fast. Now, I do think the vast majority of the strength is in the big guys. And obviously, the Dark Elf is good, and the other players on the team they're there, right? They take up space, which is enough for the big guys if you keep them like protected, right? So, I'm shocked Will pulled out a win based off of like the damage done to his team.
Yeah, it was looking very, very, very bad. But kudos to. I mean, that's just like I think it's
just got to stick
all those
with it.
extra skills. Like
Yeah.
mentioning in his recap, like 2 heads coming up. Like
Yeah.
that's like a thing you probably wouldn't normally take, but it's really good there.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I think 2 heads is decent on Chaos Chosen. It's decent all over the place. The Chosen being able to dodge on a 2 makes them like pseudo vampires, right? Dodge out on a 2, go blitz on a 4 somewhere, or if they're carrying the ball, being able to dodge out on a 2 is really nice. It's hard to like sack a player like that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Up next we have Tryhards and Darn Tootin'. 3-0 win. Surprise, surprise for the Dwarves. I did not really have any other notes. I didn't like catch this game, but it just seemed like every other Jurgen game, just about.
Yeah. So I've saved this reveal for the podcast. That way I could get your genuine response to it. I was messaged at 6 a.m. on the day of the game, which was the day that I was driving up. Okay. So I do not check Discord before getting into the car and driving. I'm somewhere in Tennessee when I look down and read this message, and it's from Ness.
Okay.
And so I'm going to read out this DM Ness. There's nothing. You're not like confessing to murder or anything here, so I'm not compromising it. But I just think it's really funny. It's like, hey Nate, I'm considering what to do for the inducement gaming as dwarves with my elves. Do you think I should go Eileen to make future games better? B, Wandering Apothecary, in quotation marks, survive, or C, sell sidestep lineman for Swift-Vine to stab his runners from cover and then return to cover using her ability. TLDR, prep for the future, save my pieces for the future, or possibly play to win this match. I sent him a message almost 12 hours later. And this is after the game is played. And I say to him, sorry, I was in the car all day driving, and it looks like it doesn't matter now. I don't think Glimmershard would be particularly good against dwarves. She's way too fragile. And if you go back and you look at the game, Glimmershard is casualty turn 1. Which is really, really funny. I do not like this. Ness has stab blindness, clearly, right? Mm-hmm. He's like the Corinthian from Sandman, but instead of mouth eyes, he's got dagger eyes. He's just trying to stab everything he sees. And yeah, the runner has armor 9. I just don't see a world in which, even if you stab the runner, you need like a 5% or whatever it is that stabbing an armor 9 person results in a casualty. You need like a 5% chance to try to win the game, and you would have to cover Glimmershard perfectly during the course of the game. And that does not appear to be the case that happened here.
Yeah, and it is like once per half?
It's once per half.
Okay.
But I don't think Glimmershard's making it to the second half against dwarves.
Yeah, it's like you...
The only defensive skill Glimmershard has is sidestep.
Yeah, no dodge.
No wrestle.
Not that even matters against dwarf linemen.
Correct.
Or anything, so, yeah. That is a very interesting message. Good insight into his stab.
His mentality, yeah.
I
thought it was really funny.
Yeah. I think the next season, I think we should add in the Secret Bowl teams so Ness can play the K-Knight Assassins.
There's also the skeleton with jump up and stab.
Also,
so of course, they're the ghost pirate faction or whatever. So
yeah. Okay. Next game up, we've got another one of my games. I was playing against the Necromantic State Hellhounds. I got Jennings' recap written down, but I'm here, so I'm just gonna say most of my part. So the way that it kind of played out, so Jennings, he won the reroll and decided to kick to me, which I was pretty happy with.
Yeah, you didn't want to get beat on first.
Yeah, I was like very afraid of like werewolves coming in and doing stuff. He has some tackle. Like the wraiths are pretty scary. Flesh golems are pretty scary. So like, I was pretty happy getting first hits, and I was able to score in the half. By the end of the half, I think you had like 5 people knocked out. I had 2 knockouts and 2 players who were like casualtied. I think it was like journeymen that had gotten taken out by this point. And so going into the second half, or even like going through the first half, I was like, okay, I'm just going to extend this drive as long as possible. Like the werewolves were gone. I think I'd taken like one of the ghouls off. And I'm like, okay, this is like, I can sit around whatever. Like I'll just like take hits on things for as long as I possibly can, so I don't have to play against tackle pieces. So the second half was basically 7s. He set up 8, I set up 7, and like he ends up scoring. We get like pretty much all of our players back for the last drive, but I was down 2 because of casualties. So I was able to end up scoring kind of at the end. There was like some failed things. I was able to like go and scoop it and score. And yeah, that was like a interesting win. That was like, I think, one of the tough games that I had left. Because I was like 50-50 with my remaining schedule at that point, where I was like, 3 of these are going to be like really challenging games. It was like people like history. My like all-time record against Jennings is not super great, but I think this was my payback for him icing me from the playoffs last season. So
yeah,
was able to get that and kind of get closer to securing standings for the playoffs. I think I got like close to a lock, not quite, but yeah, it was a really good game. It was really interesting having to play around. I was able to ignore the race for the most part. It was just kind of my thing. I'm like, I'm not even going to bother hitting these. I think I rolled like once or twice. I'm like, okay.
I generally think it's a mistake to hit them unless they're just there. The sidestep and the foul appearance and the fact that they have block make them really annoying to hit.
Yeah. It's like I was blitzing like zombies over them because I'm like, I don't like... I can decide halfway through if I don't want to hit this like lineman. I have to get stuck in if I roll a 1 on this wraith. So
yeah. The wraiths. I mean, traditionally the wraiths are, once you get past that first couple of lines of defense, the wraiths are actually fairly easy to take off the table because they only have armor 9. Right? It's not like they're not crazy, I mean, when I played the team, my wraiths were constantly getting hurt. I had there's like this whole chain of events that happened to one of my wraiths that probably cost me the playoff game against Maria, because Will gave a movement down to one of my good wraiths. I fail a go for it with that wraith for a blitz in the Maria game. And I have to make the go for it because of the movement down and so on, right?
Yeah.
So, I think attacking the wraiths, it's a toss-up. If you've got the people to do it, go for it. If hitting them actually weakens your position, you probably should just let them sit there.
Yeah.
So.
Yep. All right. Let's get another Total Body Games Swamp People. Joe getting a couple games in this week, catching up.
3. He went on vacation and came back and took it seriously. So
yeah. So we played against Clobber and Catastrophe. Played against Henderson. It was a 2-0 win for the Orcs. No casualties in this game. All the injuries came from fouls and other
they sure did
non-casualty related things. It looked like. So
yeah, it's really funny. I'd say.
Yeah. I do think that Henderson might need to change his name though, of his team, because the true Clobber happened in this next game. Second act and the Wolf Pack.
Yeah.
There's like very rarely do I feel the compulsion to go out and like see something on tour play and then have to come out and look and see what is going on. This was one of those times because I had just like was in the middle of pricing some stuff and doing some listing, and I had it pulled up on the other screen. And then I look over and I see like 7 injuries for Halen. And I'm like, what is going on?
What happened?
And I come out and there are 6 in the casualty box, a couple more of the KOs, and we were looking up the rules of concessions to see if he could concede, but he was one person above the minimum, so he ended up playing a second half, which was then when Warren was able to score and just kind of like run over everything.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was definitely like a brutal game to see.
Yeah, so my notes were, these were both people I've played this season. When I played against Halen gave me a lot of hits. Which you want to give up some hits with nobility just because you're good at taking them. Mm-hmm. And Halen was doing stuff like putting the retainers on the blood spawn, right? You can mitigate the blood spawn by using it that way, by using a retainer that way. Now, when I played against Warren had the worst dice that I had played against all season. Mm-hmm. And there was some talk in the Discord about the rubber band effect of bad luck dice, or like either way, right? Like if you're too lucky, then you get unlucky, or if you're unlucky, you then sooner get lucky or whatever. But yeah, that seemed to be true for Warren, because Warren's dice against me were atrocious. Yeah. Then he went and played Halen and left a smoking crater where once there were remains of a man.
Yeah.
So
that was. I know in responding, Warren listened to the podcast last week, and he had tagged you, and I think he called it the goblin mindset and being able to embrace the suck. And I guess if you embrace the suck enough, sometimes the suck will also embrace you.
Right.
And then force your opponent to embrace it. So it seems like one of those games. In a similar world of players possibly being cursed, we got Tidal Terrors and the Barbarians, which was a 1-1 draw. And I caught a little bit at the end of this game. I walked over last night, and Will mentioned that he believed that Chris had cursed Clay for the beatdown of players that Clay had enacted on Chris, but that the curse was a little bit misguided and it was also affecting Clay's opponents. And as I was in the span I was standing there for maybe like 5 minutes, was running over to do a handoff to try to score at the end of the game and failed a rush with a goblin who fell over and died. And then Clay went to go pick up the ball with Skink and rolled a 2. So that game ended up a draw. With just like lots of bad rolls on either side.
That's funny stuff, man.
Yeah.
When both people would... I mean, those are really funny games to watch. It reminds me honestly of the Fred Austin game that I watched earlier in the season, where like Austin goes to throw a bomb with Bomber and fumbles it, but like wildly inaccurates it, not like fumble, but wildly inaccurates it, and then scatters to like 2 of his guys still, and then Fred goes to throw a blitz with like the ogre and rolls a 1 on Bonehead, and it's just like. Yeah. Both people were just giving each other like tons of opportunity to get lucky, giving the other person a chance to get lucky, and then they just get unlucky, making the game funnier. So
yeah, okay, wild thing. I think this just in terms of like playoff landscape. We talked a little bit about the crab bucket thing.
Yeah,
this was one that really feels like that. Where
either
one of these players would have been really happy with the win. Like they would have been okay fighting.
All 3 of them, right? Because we got another crab. The crab that's like almost out of the bucket, but definitely lost a leg here.
Yeah. So it's like this. Like the worst possible case, the worst possible scenario was a draw.
Yeah.
For them, because that's one less point shared between them.
Yeah.
To get. So they like lost a match point in there, and they're both still on the bottom looking up. So.
Yep.
One last game we got Gondolin Gloryhounds and Taisho Charon. Was a 1-0 win for Jim. But the most important part is that we had Zolcath, the Zote, taken.
Yeah. Zolcath mentioned.
Yes, Zolcath mentioned. That is literally in my that is in my notes, nice. Which I am showing.
We've got the same level of brain rot when it comes to the internet, I think.
Yes. So yeah, it seemed just like a game that Jim was able to execute the way he wanted.
Yeah, I don't think it was a free win for him, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, it looks like Zolcath did some damage. He got a casualty, and Zolcath's got mighty blows. Zolcath is like, he's probably overpriced in modern star player standards, right? Like if you're comparing Zolcath to say like an Ivan,
yeah,
or I think if you're throwing 3-die hits with Zolcath, he's also extremely versatile. And positional, right? Because he's got the sure feet, so he can always just kind of like get into position. And Prehensile Tail is good against elves. I mean, it makes your 2-ups 3-ups, and that's a world of difference.
Or 1-ups, 2-ups for one catcher.
Right.
Whatever. That's fine. Yeah. So that game also, I think, had some playoff implications there. Obviously, we mentioned like Chris has kind of got stuck there.
Yeah.
Jim able to jump up and get back up in the top half of that standings. So
a tie or a win for Chris there. I mean, you get to 0-0 with Jim in a game, and it feels like you already won it, right? Like if you're halfway through the game and Jim hasn't scored on you, that feels pretty good. Chris gives some people a chance to try to catch up to him.
Yeah. That's our end of our recaps for games. In our in memoriam section, but it's also very quiet.
Pretty sparse,
yeah. We had a singular skink for Swamp People, Tatalia.
Yeah.
Gunned down.
Yeah, in the words of Killer Mike, your life can end like in Godfather 1. You get the gun while I christen my son.
Yes, so we take a brief moment of silence for our editor who might also have to add to this in memoriam section.
Yeah.
And we did an honorary in memoriam for the Rotten Hybrid, the mummy who got his strength down.
Yeah. I think he's already been sent to the glue farm.
He has. Happy trails, you large cloth woven fellow.
We'll see you, Space Cowboy.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's going to do it for our recaps this week. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll jump into our deep dive. So just getting right in there. It's the Scrum. All right. Our deep dive this week, we're talking about scrumming.
Scrum-Diddly-Umptious.
Yes. So, as the resident frenzier of the podcast, like you have more experience as a Scrum Master.
Scrum Master, yes. This is my software development role as well as Scrum Master. That's for like the 3 people that'll get that joke, I guess. We talked about scrums in the past, right? And I think it's worth kind of defining what that is, right? I feel like if you've got like 3 or 4 people from each team that are all marking each other and the ball is involved in some way, right? Now, you could have similar situations and the ball's just hanging out somewhere else on the court, and you're trying to like bash your way through a couple of people and get some people off the pitch, perhaps. But I think traditionally the scrum, the ball might be on the ground. Sometimes the ball ends up in the hands of a player that never has an opportunity to hold the ball, like a big guy or an agility 4 or 5 piece. It's a board state that is fairly common. Won't necessarily happen every game. I think it kind of depends on the teams. Some teams lend themselves to it, but it's a board state that happens quite a bit, and it's worth kind of talking about different things that go on. Like, so obviously some teams are advantaged, right? Like, I actually think Amazons are a halfway decent scrum team. I've played some tournament games with Amazons where my only play is to just base literally every model that my opponent has and then pray they start failing some rolls. But then again, you've got some teams like, say, Vampires. They don't want anybody based if they can help it, just because your team isn't like sturdy enough to survive the crackback. So I think that's a decent kicking off point if we want to kind of freestyle from here.
Yeah, so I guess obviously you mentioned a couple teams like Amazon's favorable. They have like defensive abilities. Like I think your players are all like
even defensive, right? Like
defensive
is an
huge.
incredible scrum ability, right?
Yeah.
Because guard is one of the best scrum abilities, right? That's why guard is so potent, is because scrums are prevalent and guard is widely applicable in those.
Yeah. So, Amazon's good. Vampire's not a team you really want. Like, what are the other aspects you're looking for in like a team to what's the difference in making it, why Imperial Nobility is like so good at it.
Right. Whereas
Other
like a team like Norse isn't, right?
Yeah.
It's kind of counterintuitive. Not that Norse are awful at it. It's a combination of strength, skills, and armor, right? That make you want to get in there in Scrum. The armor on Norse really keeps you honest. You base too many of your opponent's dudes and you will get punished. Mm-hmm. Now, teams can fight their way out of a scrum. Norse are pretty good at that. Like if your opponent's trying to box you in with the combination of like, say, Frenzy, Dauntless on Valkyries, some decent order of operations, you can end up like pushing your opponent away, knocking them down, maybe take some people off the pitch. And then you've broken up the scrum, right? I think like elves are pretty good at scrums, typically because of their stats. Mm-hmm. They get to choose when they want to scrum. Dark elves, you played some dark elves in a tournament, right? There's a lot of times where when you've got 6 blodgers on the team, your play is just jam them in there and force the opponent to try to extricate themselves from that situation. And then inevitably they fail some sort of roll, and that's where elves kind of like accelerate the game. Nobility, the combination of stand firm and wrestle on the bodyguards, and with some skills you get some guard in there. The thinned on retainers means if your opponent's like, the thing about scrums is like the positioning is really important, right? Mm-hmm. So anything that changes positioning, sidestep, thinned. Necro was a great scrum team. Stand firm on the flesh golems. Sidestep on the wraiths, meaning when your opponent is hitting you, they're not getting the placement that they actually want.
Right.
That's the stuff I'm looking for. I think skills play a huge part, and then I think stats matter a whole lot too. You're not trying to scrum with halflings, right? You don't have the armor for it. Gnomes are a very similar team where it's like gnome. It's a good way to get 8 casualties on your gnome team if you're just in there and basing as much as you possibly could, right? Like you're not going to have a team left except maybe the trees, if you're lucky by the end of it, if you keep doing that type of thing. Right?
Very true. Very true. Yeah, that's definitely the thing. Is like I think some skills are going to be better for it, but wrestle is like can be kind of iffy with something like
wrestle goes both ways in the scrum, right?
Yeah. There
are times where a very common die roll is skull both down, 1 in 9, right? It's about 11% of the time. I guess it's not technically 11% of the time, but a good chunk of the time when you roll skull both down, if both people have block, you're just sitting there, and so that means you get cracked back. That kind of goes back to the Norse aren't good in the scrum. Mm-hmm. If you're scrumming for several turns in a row, right. Teams like Black Orcs or traditional Orcs, teams like Dwarves, those 10 armor teams with a lot of block starting with, are teams that can mix it up for several turns in a row without like attrition taking a major toll. Mm-hmm. Whereas Norse cannot. They will just, if you're knocking each other down at the similar rate and you're Dwarves versus Norse, the Norse team is going to get obliterated by the end of the game. It's the fighting for the ball matters a whole lot. There's a lot of like mutations that are good. Big hand is one of those. It's one of those. I think it's like it's hard to find a spot for it on a lot of the chaos teams, but it's really good if you keep finding yourselves in a scrum. Obviously, skills like frenzy matter a lot. Frenzy, like my experience with Corn, Coop talked about this back when he played some Corn. There's a lot of times where you'll have like a traditional scrum going, and a couple of Frenzy pieces will just push people off into random parts of the field, and those are like they're basically out of the play, which is fine usually. Like
Right.
you're just trying like if you're trying to tilt the odds in your favor, getting random pieces away from the scrum helps out a bunch, so.
Yeah. That's, yeah. Scrums are definitely something that I'm interested in and something I like dove into a lot in like previous seasons and previous games. This season, not as much. Although, like, against Lizardmen, that was like a big fight.
Lizardmen have a good, it's that going back to the strength skills and armor, right? Saurus, and part of the reason why Sauruses end up getting hurt at a disproportionate rate compared to what you think they should live through is their agility keeps them from getting away from the scrum.
Yeah.
So if the Lizardmen are winning the scrum, then it feels really good. If the Lizardmen are losing the scrum, it feels really bad because you stand up your Saurus, it gets knocked down. You stand up your Saurus, it gets knocked down. And if your opponent high rolls a couple times on your armor breaks, then you got some Sauruses out of the game, and now you're behind on the strength coefficient between the two teams, and your skinks are going to have to run for their lives. Because the skinks aren't good in a scrum, right? Like most stunty players are not good in a scrum.
Yeah.
To the point about gnomes and wrestle. Wrestle is like sometimes good in the scrum, sometimes bad in the scrum, right? That's the one knock against the bodyguard, the nobility bodyguards, is that they have wrestle and not block.
Right.
So if they are stand firm, wrestle, guard, and your opponent rolls a both down, and they just use the both down, then boom, they take your guard out of the equation. And that kind of sucks.
Yeah, that's going to be... That's a good thing. I think so. When you're looking at a scrum, so you get into one, you decide, like, this is the time. It's scrumming time. You get in there. And then all of a sudden you're like, it might not have been scrumming time.
You're right. In fact, it was not.
Like, what's your... Do you have a, like, escape route? Do you plan for that? Like, how do you kind of visualize getting out of a scrum once you get into it? Or are you just, like, trying to brute will your opponent to try to escape first?
Yeah, so sometimes if you are just getting the table run on you, sometimes the right call is to just not stand your pieces up, right?
Yeah.
If the option is take 5 blocks against Mighty Blow Claws characters or receive 1 foul, then sometimes the right call is to just let them step on you.
Yeah.
Right. If you got to know when you've conceded the touchdown in a run, in a specific drive, right? And like if the scrum is happening on the sideline, that's like a particularly dangerous situation, right? I've had a couple of games this season where I've been able to surf multiple people in the same turn. Because my opponent chose to scrum up on the sideline versus a bunch of Frenzy and Juggernaut, right? And so suddenly they're getting people dunked into the crowd they weren't expecting. And so that's times where you got to, like, if my blocks don't go the way they do, what happens from here? So, yeah, you do need to know when to pull the ripcord. I've had some really funny corn turns where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm ready. I'm getting like 6 blocks this turn, and you just like double skull out on the first block, and then you get hit back, and you're like, well, okay, maybe that didn't work out the way I was expecting it to.
Yeah.
So, and that's the big thing is like especially if you're a team that relies on big guys, they have a tendency to break your heart when you need them to perform for you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's like a thing that whenever I've gotten into scrums this season, it's been like a thing where it's like, I need to make sure that I'm not hinging it entirely on one piece.
Yeah.
So a lot of the times I'll like send in jaguars kind of like next to each other, and they will like both be there, and it's like, okay, these pieces together are going to be very difficult for you to answer. I'm going to just be able to like send them in, get some other people, and it's fine. And if one of them goes down, I'm like, okay, now I need to like find a way to get out. But I give like a little bit of leeway. But if your whole plan is hinging on like a big guy, like you have like an ogre in there, and all of a sudden it boneheads, and then you were going to be scrambling for your life trying to get out of there and getting kicked and tripwired and punched along the way.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, like knowing when to commit to the scrum is a big one. Knowing when to pull the ripcord is a big one. Knowing whether or not you even want it. Right. Knowing that sometimes the scrum is your only out, right? Yeah. Is to just it's a little bit different in tournament play, where if you've got resurrection and your whole team gets wiped out, and they're just going to be back next game, that's totally different than in like a league game where you're like, well, I got to stop this touchdown, I really got to sell out for it. I guess I base literally every model that my opponent has, like that will play out badly for some teams.
Right. Yeah, and I just like the thing, like league considerations matter, like advancing players, like oh hey, I've got journeyman, I'll just send them in the middle of this and hope that they get kind of mosh pitted around for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, to that point, there was a game in the game against Wayne. He said that with a player. He was like, well, I don't really want this player killed by the blood spawn, but he went and based the player with the blood spawn anyway, right?
Yeah.
And the next turn, blood spawn casualty the guy,
yeah.
And it's one of those where it's like you move a piece and you think to yourself, I don't want to do that, but I guess I gotta. Right. Because he was selling out for the ball, right? He was creating those scrum situations, and that was one of those with Wood Elves versus Corn. And the situation of the game was I didn't have my sure hands guy, so he's thinking to himself, if I get a nice break on the ball, if I pop the ball loose, get a nice break, and move it somewhere, he could pick it up and run the other way, right? But he kept finding himself in those scrum situations where the ball didn't quite go the direction he needed it to, fell into a couple of my tackle zones, and then the resulting damage back wasn't quite catastrophic, but it was like, a couple of different rolls go slightly worse for him, and he's like buying a new war dancer, right? So
So okay, you get to make what is your like ideal positional ideal player to take into a scrum? Yeah,
it's like a strength 4 piece with guard and stand firm. That's like perfect for scrums, because you lodge the piece in there and your opponent can't just move it out of the way. And the downside to stand firm is if your opponent's got like Juggernaut, but like in a scrum you have to use a blitz in a scrum. Doesn't feel good unless it's like the thing that is freeing the piece, right? So that's the nice thing about stand firm, is that the only way to counter it is with something that your opponent has to blitz with.
Right.
While Juggernaut is an incredible skill, it's a very good skill, it is very painful to take that skill on a lot of pieces anything sooner than like the third skill, unless it starts with it, like the Vampire Blitzer or like a Corn Gore.
Right.
Both players I love for different reasons. So.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I think it covers most of the questions I had on it. Any other parting thoughts for?
Yeah, I mean, I touched on it a bit there, but I do think a blitz with the intention of trying to get away from the scrum, right? That's a classic trick there. I wouldn't be shocked if Jurgen wins a playoff game like that, right? Where you've got your 5 strength runner, your opponent scrums up to try to do what they can to slow you down, and your 5 strength piece is just like smashes a dude out of the way, makes a 3-up dodge, and runs for the hills, right? That's the thing about the extricating yourself from a scrum. Knowing that, you could throw a block, but the blitz is actually better here to try to free up a piece.
Right.
So that's another thing where Frenzy, if you're all scrummed, Frenzy is really good with a blitz. You intentionally choose the push because you don't have to make dodges that way.
Yeah.
Push and then hit them again, and then try to get free and go. And then usually when that happens, if the whole rest of the opponent's team was like in that scrum, then they have to make rolls to try to get free to go after the ball carrier, and then you've put undue pressure on them to just land those rolls.
Right.
So,
do love making opponents roll dice.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. And that's going to wrap it for our deep dive this week.
Yeah.
We got Week 10 preview games.
There's some good ones.
There are some real good ones.
There's some good ones.
Especially now that we're getting closer to the end of the season, we really see some matchups in the beginning that might not have been as interesting all of a sudden get very interesting.
Right.
So, leg day, what matchups are you looking at?
I was looking at the Darn-Tootin' Gondolin Gory Hounds one, right? If you're looking at someone who has a chance to end Jurgen's streak, Jim's always a contender. I don't know that Jim's got the tools to tackle this dwarf team, but I think one more win and Jurgen locks in first place. I think he's like that close to locking in first place. One win might be enough because I think he goes to 10 wins, and then everybody else in the league right now has like 5.
Yeah, I think he would be at. I think it would require someone out. I think it would require Ness winning out to get him at that point, because he's at. I believe currently Jurgen's at 25 points.
Yes,
he's got 8 wins and a draw.
Yeah. So if he wins against,
goes to 28.
Yeah,
and Ness has 4 games left at 17. So theoretically,
he
has to win out to try to challenge. I think that's it. So
so Jurgen's like very close, and the win here would be over Jim, which would make Jim not possible to lock in first, right? Yeah, so I'm right there with you. I guess there's probably some people who don't have all of their games that might be able to challenge him. Once again, this is the curse of not everybody having played their game so far. Us trying to figure it out.
So it looks like with a win, there would be 3 people who could theoretically do it.
Right. So Juan, Sean,
and Ness.
Yeah,
are the 3. So
I think 2 wins with Jurgen and the first place is locked in. Then right.
Yeah, and there's a chance. One of the other games happening this week is Rag and Bone and Tryhards. If that one's a draw, then
that's it.
He's locked.
Yeah,
with a win.
Yep.
So it'll be very interesting to watch. I think that game will be interesting too. For Undead and Dark Elves. So.
Yeah. Another one is the Little Titans of Mayhem and the Renegades of Funk. Who would win one troll-sized snotling or 100 snotling-sized trolls, right? Like, are the big guys good enough? Are the big guys enough to overcome the snotling matchup? My suspicion is no, right? Because the snotlings are obviously going to come in with some amount of dirty players.
Yeah, the snotlings are able to pull someone in who gets 2 dice on a big guy by himself.
Yeah, and bombs are bad for big guys. Traditionally, and because a team like Renegades really is trying to leverage those big guys for positioning purposes, and then just throwing bombs at them gives you extra blitzes, makes it really hard to protect the ball on that team.
Yeah, that will be interesting. Also, these 2 players are currently in a bit of a fight for other leagues. Talking about the Greenville League, Sean was able to get a win against Juan with halflings against vampires, and if any of the upstate Blood Bowl League people are listening to this, obviously the playoffs for that are this Sunday. If you're looking for some Blood Bowl action to watch, you can come out and check that out.
Yeah, we're always fired up on tour play, right?
Yeah,
I cyberstalk the Greenville League occasionally through tour play. Just taking a look in there, just seeing what's going on. Just because I know a bunch of those players. Skoda's down from it to play in our league as well.
Yep.
Phil and Jared and Beatty have all played in our leagues in the past, so it's all. Then those players have played in our tournaments, so
yeah. But that would be a potential semifinal game in that league for the Halfling Vampire rematch. So it could be like the second time they play out of 3 in the course of like 3 weeks. So that'll be interesting. Yeah. Another game I was looking at was Loki Rat Bastards and Tidal Terrors. I think that's an interesting one.
That's a bubble match for sure.
Yeah, it's like
the crab in a bucket match.
Who is the this is like a matchup between like the least lucky of the season versus the least lucky of like the year with like injuries between them. So I think that'll be an interesting one to watch. Let's see if the curse continues from Chris.
Yeah.
I don't think it could possibly get any worse for Austin because he is currently leading the league in dead players. So.
Yeah. And that's what, 6?
Yeah.
6 dead players.
Yeah.
It's quite a bit.
Yeah. I have 4. There's 2 people with like 4. I think myself and I think Sean have like 4 dead players.
Well, a lot of those were journeymen, right?
It's like 50-50. So. All right. Total body division. Picks of the week. What are you looking at?
I was looking at Arbor Vitae. What a drag match! I know, of course, we usually try to shy away from talking about our own matches, but but yeah.
You say usually. This is the second week in a row.
Well,
and then it'll probably happen again.
Well,
at least one time.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to be different and pick. There's 2 I'm looking at. One is Clobbering Catastrophe and Scaping Blade Skitter Stars. The Alliteration Bowl.
Yeah. I had that one marked down as well.
So to me, this is on.
It's like a huge standings thing for this division.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be interesting to see this matchup from a perspective of like how Coop's team fares against some teams. Like looking at his schedule, he's played like the lower half or so for the most part, and then his higher division matches like were. Me getting horribly diced, and then Chase, who kind of blew him off the table.
Yeah.
So that will be interesting to see. Like, this is going to be someone. Coop has a lot of tough games left. He's got this game left. He still has to play Jennings. He still has to play Wayne.
Yeah, that's some heat.
Yeah, he's got like a murderer's row. This is kind of like what the position Clay was in at the end of last season.
Yeah, the difference is that Coop's like leading the division here, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, his position might be in a free fall if he loses like some number of these games, but he's like well positioned at this point.
Yeah.
To even if he drops a handful of them, he still might have enough.
Yeah, I think that he might be locked at 21 points.
Yeah. For
playoffs, so it's like it's just a jockeying for position at this point. But I think when the position is possibly having to play against like the Dwarfs team on the other half of the bracket, like positioning really matters for this division.
Yeah. Right. I would never intentionally throw a game just to try to like have a different opponent in the playoffs. One, because I think you would suffer a cosmic curse. Right. But I do think there are teams on that other side that I would rather face.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. I did have a fun pick of the week, which is the Wretched Foulfangs looking for trouble. I think that game could be hilarious.
Yeah.
Like lots of secret weapons and fouls flying around. Like that'll be a good Blood Bowl.
Yeah, for sure. So,
but yeah. And we got a couple other we got a couple other games that of course are going to be good. We'll get to talk about them when they get played. Please play them quickly and in an efficient manner for our sakes and for our content's sake.
Yeah, we're doing it for the content.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Getting horribly diced for content. That's the way to do it. Yeah. Any final thoughts on week 10?
Answer direct DMs and Discord, please.
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, understandable.
We're trying to schedule Blood Bowl games.
Fair points.
If
Amen.
it's all the same to you.
Yeah, not everyone gets to walk 10 feet from their desk and stare their opponent in the eye and ask them to,
and then play for their job.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, I guess you might hear me next week. Nathan will surely be here because he drew that game.
Yeah,
so.
that was a draw.
Yeah. So,
thus securing my position in the company for a little bit longer.
Yep. Well, appreciate y'all listening to us wherever you're listening. Make sure you are giving a follow, like, subscribe. What other things are there?
An upvote.
Yeah, upvote. Ripples, is that still a thing?
A retweet.
Retweet?
A re-zeet.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you can skeet out about us. Add us on your threads.
Whatever Pinterest is.
Yeah, pin it. Yeah, pin
it.
this. Yes. Yeah, and obviously we're here as the Empire Podcast Network, so we've got other shows too, which are great audio engineers reminding us of at gunpoint. So check out 4 Color Hustle if you like comics too.
Yeah, the comic about, the podcast about comics.
Yes.
The first podcast ever created about comics, I think, in America.
True statements being spoken. That's all we speak. And I say this truly to you when I say we appreciate you listening, and we'll see y'all next week.
Goodbye, everybody.